Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and what's new, what's been going on, that kind of stuff in photography. And I got to tell you, I'm a little bit behind on a lot of the things that have been happening. The rumor sites and my fellow photographers here on YouTube. Because I just skimmed the thumbnails earlier this morning, and I can't remember what they were now, but there's all kinds of new stuff. I think Jimmy said something about a 200 megapixel camera, and I don't know, something like that. That's crazy. So I have to watch that. Oh, you can't see me? Hold on, let me try and refresh. Because I'm showing everything on my screen okay. All right. I'll give that a couple of seconds and see if you guys can see me now. How about now? Hopefully you can see me now. I don't know why the app sometimes, there's always this glitch sometimes. The 200 megapixel was a Samsung phone. Oh, okay. Oh, you still don't see me. Wow, that bites. Let me try and open up the app directly in YouTube. Recover the shadows. I can see all your chat and everything. Wow, it's dark. I don't get that. It clearly says on screen. I'm going to work on this. Give me a second. At least you guys can hear me, so I can just tell you what's happening. Now it's a podcast rather than a live stream, right? But I'm going to get the picture back. Maybe I have to stop the video and start a new stream. Let me see what my settings say. Full HD. Let me switch to regular HD. Nope. Nothing. Wow. This is brutal. I'm going to refresh my screen one more. All right. Now I should be on. Okay. I don't know what happened. A little glitch when I went from the video to the live stream. So I just said, well, let's click back to the video and come back to the live stream and see what happens. Oh, anyhow, sorry about that. There's always some issue. Somebody's texting me now. Oh, okay. Hold on. I got to tell him I'm live streaming now. Otherwise, he'll text me like the whole time. This is, you guys know him. This is Ben Chappelle. He does the astrophotography, channel, the narrowband channel. I've had him on as a guest before. Anyway, hopefully he gets that message. Maybe he'll come into the chat. Okay. Oh yeah, I got a new green screen. I used this for something. I can't remember. I can't remember why I'm using this. I can change it. That's why I like green screen. I mean, I could just show you a white wall, which is what my room is painted, but who cares about that, right? Okay. 1 second. So if you guys were in my photo editing live stream, or have watched it since, I had it on, I don't know, I had it the other day. I got a delivery, and it came in during the live stream, but I didn't tell anybody what I got. And I also mentioned last week that I got a new camera, for those of you that were there for the 5 minutes I talked about that. But again, I still haven't told anybody what it was. So I got it right here. So we'll go live here. I've already unboxed it and tested it out. I just got it working just before the stream started. But it's a new camera and lens in here. Can you guess what it is? Does it say on the box here? I don't want to give it away right away. But this is the size of the box. Basically, I got it. You know how Olympus had the 20% off sale, on their refurbished stuff. So the camera I wasn't really excited about, but it came with the 14-42 kit lens, the easy one, the power zoom one. And I have one, but it's broken, right? It's got this problem. So this camera came with it, and I got 20% off. But let's see. Yeah, it's not an EM1X, right? All right, here we go. It's the Olympus Air. Just this little tiny camera. So, it was like $399 with this lens, and then I got 20% off. So I ended up paying like $339 or something. I don't know, whatever it works out to. 20% off, $80. So with tax and free shipping, it was like $330 something. So basic, because this lens brand new sells for $299, and you can buy them used for about $150. So I don't know. It wasn't a great deal. The Olympus deals this year weren't as good as last year. Last year when they had their 20% off sale about this time, the prices were much lower. Like I know I bought the Olympus VP10 recorder, right? A little stick pen recorder. It was like $35. And when they had the sale this time, it was they jacked the price up to $80. Brand new, they're only $99. But they jacked the price up to $80 and then 20% off that. So that's still $54, right? Plus tax. And I was like, wow. And then like other cameras like the EM10 Mark IIIs, body only was like 500 something. 20% off would have brought it down to like 400. And I'm like, they were selling them for $400 and giving 20% off last year. And I remember the EM10 Mark II, I could have got that for like $200 with the 20% off code. This year you couldn't touch that price. And yeah, so I didn't really go online because last year I think I made a quick video about the deals that they have on the Olympus refurb site at 20% off. But I didn't get on this year because I was like, there's not really any great deals here. The only exceptions were like the 40-150 f2.8 Pro lens was like $11.99. Then 20% off that was another couple $100. So you could have got that lens for less than $1,000, from Olympus directly. And they're practically brand new. When they say refurbished, it doesn't mean anything. It means brand new, basically. As far as I know, I've never heard anyone get something from the refurbished site off Olympus with a scratch on it. It was like brand new, right? But anyway, I did fire this thing up. I got the app. The app was a little hard to find, but I found it on Amazon App Store, and it's free. and I took 5 or 6 pictures just before the stream started, and it works fine. I mean, I watched Robin's video on this, and he said he was having some random Wi-Fi drops and things like that. So I have to take this out for a photo walk and see how it goes. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm more excited about the lens than the camera itself, right? Because I'll probably never use this. Because I like a viewfinder and controls and everything like that, right? But what surprised me was that it has a shutter button here on top. You have press to focus, and you fully press to take the picture, or you can just touch the screen on your phone and take a picture, just like the Olympus Share app. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's just kind of a unique camera, right? That, just like Robin said, it was like the future came too early, or whatever his video was about. He was right. It came a little bit too early. But I would argue that this kind of device will really never take off. Even if they come out with a new version of this with all the fixes and whatever Robin was saying would be good if they made this again, I just don't see people taking this device out and doing this. I mean, at this point, right, you might as well just have a real camera on you rather than fuss with this, because this is a little pancake lens. If I put like a legit lens on here, this is almost as big as a new camera, but just awkward to use. I mean, the only thing kind of neat about it, and you can do this with the Olympus Share app anyway, right, is you can take pictures, while you're holding the camera, pointing anywhere while you got the phone over here. So, whoop-de-doo, right? I mean, let me show you what I do sometimes with the Share app. I have to get something. But I got one of these cell phone mounts that's got a little hot shoe on top here and a hot shoe thing down here. And yeah, this goes in. Just tighten it up. But yeah, if you want to, use an app to control your camera, you can do this, right? And now you got a real grip and a, oops, I got to tighten this up a little. You can do this. Then you got a nice big screen, right? You can look at instead of this little tiny thing. But this setup introduces its own issues as well, right? So honestly, this, in my opinion, was never the future of cameras. Like, this is not a nice synergy between cell phone and legitimate cameras. This is just a concept that I think they wanted it to be kind of something to have this synergy between cell phones and cameras and then grow together. But even if they got the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth and all of that perfect, like, you just put the camera on the phone and it connects like that, right? And now you can swap lenses and things. This setup is just, to me, this setup with this or this, either one is very awkward. It's like, if you want to take a picture, pick one. Use your phone or use your camera. Don't don't try and, you know what I mean? It's like, what? Why on earth would somebody work like this? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, when it first came out, I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting, you know. Maybe there's some, you know, you can add some artificial intelligence. Now you can use apps and everything. But you know who's got the right idea right now? Samsung did it years ago, but they developed a camera that's running on Android, right? Um, that's the way to do it if you're gonna do it. Just make an Android camera. Don't make a some kind of, you know, Frankenstein hodgepodge, you know. This makes no sense to me at all, relatively speaking. But I got it because I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about, and I wanted this lens, so I paid a little more than I would if I bought this lens separately. But and I think you know I like to collect unique things. This is a very unique idea and concept that, in my opinion, was doomed to fail from the day it launched. You know, it just makes no sense. Use your phone or use your camera. Don't why do you want to try to blend those two together? It doesn't make sense to me. And then this young Nuo thing that's coming out, it's just an Android camera, right? That makes sense, right? That's like you bring your camera with you, then you can incorporate and start getting third-party apps to do any kind of AI stuff. The only downside to having like an Android camera is technology changes so fast. I don't know what processor they're putting in that Yongnuo, uh, but you know this phone's only 2 years old and it's already only half as fast as the newest one out there. You know, and if you're gonna start, if I guarantee in 2 years I'm gonna have to replace this because I'll start running apps and they're gonna just chug along. You know, they're not gonna be able to run on this. Um, so I replace my phones every 4 years, pretty much because I have to. The apps just don't run on them very well. But that's not a bad life cycle for me. But I'm not a heavy user, right? There's people that replace these freaking things every year because they have to. So I don't know. What do you guys think? You think it's worth it to continue developing this kind of concept? Or is it better just to go full on, just make an Android camera? You know? Then you can have, just imagine like this OMD EM1 Mark III running on Android instead of the Olympus operating system. It's just running on Android. That would be very interesting. You can download really fancy apps on the App Store and do all kinds of creative things, but they have to. But that's the problem, right? Is eventually the life cycle of that kind of device is going to be very limited, I think. And it's going to, I mean, just imagine, and then take the Wi-Fi and all that crap out. Well, I guess you have to leave it, but you're going to be susceptible to viruses and identity theft and all kinds of things if they start using Android, right? Whatever problems Android is having now, that's going to happen with your camera. So that's why I kind of like having its own separate operating system that people aren't trying to hack and steal your crap all the time. Because imagine you're taking pictures and you got some virus on your camera, right? Whether it's Android or iOS, whatever. You got some virus on your camera every time it connects to Wi-Fi, sending your pictures out to whoever, and you don't know it until it's too late. So that's why I don't like to take pictures with my cell phone except for some very specific things, or if I don't have my camera with me, which is almost never. I always have my cameras with me because everything gets uploaded to the cloud instantly, and I don't know where else it's going, right? So I'm very careful about the images I keep on this phone. Not that I take anything weird, but it's just privacy issues and those kinds of risks. Yeah, I've seen the. Michael's asking if I've seen the Alice M43. I did see that. It's kind of the same idea, right? You attach your phone. It's kind of the same idea as this. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I'm just not. It just makes no sense to me to do something like this. Because the Alice camera is going to have the same issue as any Android device. It's going to have a very, very short life cycle. And it's not, it could be crashing. It's just not going to be as reliable, I don't think. And I hate rubbing my phone to get around and do things. It's I can't. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of phones in terms of using them. I miss my BlackBerry that had real buttons and stuff, that I could type on and all that. I mean, I'd like to buy another BlackBerry. I'm sure they still make them, but it doesn't. I don't know. I have to look at that before I upgrade again. See if they come out with a phone with real buttons again. I'm just a tactile kind of person, right? All right, let me catch up on the chat real quick because I was jibber jabbering there for a while. I'm gonna scroll up here. So everybody's here. Thomas, Michael, Tony. Good to see everybody. Roberto. Oh, hey, Roberto. Roberto saw my house picture, and he was like, "Oh, the houses are so beautiful and more beautiful than in Australia." And I was like, "Take a guess what that house cost that I posted on my Instagram, what the asking price is, and then you'll be like, well, maybe it's not that nice, But it's well over $1 million is what they're asking. So, when you put the price of the house in context of how it looks, you're like, it's all relative, right? Like if I told you this EM1 Mark III costs $5,000, you'd be like, well, geez, for $5,000, you know what I can get? But then you're like, well, these are on sale all the time for $1,400. Then you're like, oh, this is a sweet camera, right? I mean, I think it's a great camera at any price, but for somebody that doesn't know anything about cameras, they'd be like, your perception of how nice a camera is relative to its price, right? Houses are no different. I mean, I remember I used to think about $1 million house. I'm thinking of like a mansion, with a circular driveway and motorized gates that open up, and then like, an infinity pool in the back overlooking, a cliff or something off some mountains. No, you get a little matchbox house, for $1 million anymore, at least in this area, not like the ghetto where I live, but like just within 10 minutes drive of my house, there's like $7 million houses that are matchboxes, not even the same size as my house, smaller in some cases, not 7 million, but millions of dollars, and they're smaller than my house. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's see what else we got. System Natura. Just got $175 back from OMD buying a second camera as backup. My EM1X returned as part exchange. Good price. Good camera, but not so. Oh, good. Yeah, it's a big camera. I never bought one. It's just too big. And John Truman says it's worth watching Robin's video from 4 days ago. Yeah, I saw the thumbnail for that. I just haven't watched it yet. Now that I have this easy lens, I can watch it, and I can do the same test, right? I didn't watch his video yet, but I would argue, I don't know about this easy lens because I tested it against I tested the 12 to 32 against the regular 14 to 42 with the manual zoom. And I can tell you the 12 to 32 is sharper. I mean, not like, you have to pixel peep 100, 200% in. I mean, like, you can tell right away at a normal image, it's sharper. And then when you pixel peep, you can see it very clearly how it's sharper. Now, this easy lens, if it's a little better than the manual zoom version, that may be the case. And, if he's talking about sharpness, right? I don't know what his criteria was to say that Olympus wins. I didn't watch it. Because there's all other factors other than sharpness to consider, right, when you use a lens. But anyhow, I'm definitely going to watch that. And Steve G's here. Hello. Plato. And Ulf Lund is here. And Christine M says, yes, the Air was a bit before its time, but have a look at the new Hawaiian. Yeah, I was jibber-jabbering about that. It's basically a camera with an Android operating system. I mean, that makes more sense to me. And it's a cell phone. So it's a cell phone with an interchangeable lens mount that's micro four thirds. See, that makes more sense to me. Just make it from the ground up, an Android camera. I would not activate the cell phone side of it personally, because that adds a lot of cost to it that I think is unnecessary. But it does give you the functionality of uploading to Instagram or social media like this now, right? If you have a cell phone. But I'm not in that world, right, where, these kids do that a lot. I mean, I don't do it. I like to download and look at the images before I post them online anywhere. But, these kids, they get out there, click, click, click. They see something stupid, click, and post it to Instagram right away. Then next thing you know. Yeah, planned obsolescence, making you spend your money. Absolutely. And System Tour says, I used a screen with hood on top of the camera when shooting video using a tripod, super viewing and easy on the eyes. Yeah, my problem is not so much the glare and everything like that a hood would fix. It's just too small. I have to wear my glasses for me to see or read anything on the back of the screen, so I'm always using the EVF. I mean, I'm used to using the EVF anyway, but, the EVF has a diopter I can adjust, and I can get it tack sharp so I can see what the heck I'm looking at. But just looking at a camera like this, I can't read. I can just barely read what the buttons say on there. Never mind if the screen has anything on it. So I've missed a lot of shots because I couldn't tell if they were in focus or not by looking at the back of the screen, and I didn't have time to kind of flip through like this through the EVF. I just look at the back of the screen to see if I got the composition I want. Which, man, I think I'm pretty happy with the last couple of photo walks, and I had 2 photo jobs this week. I'm pretty happy with how everything came out. I mean, I was a little rusty on both sides, right? Doing a real estate property and doing another event. I was doing videography for an event, and I was very rusty on both counts, but ultimately I did okay. The final result, the customers were very, very happy. John Truman said, I never got on with phone photography. I don't like the whole aesthetic. Give me a proper camera, then it's yeah. No, it's not just you. I'm the same way. I don't like to use the phone as a camera. It's just awkward to me. It's like you tap the screen, and it's like if it's noisy, you can't hear the click sound either, right? That whole thing is just I just don't like it. I mean, photography for me, since it's like it's a hobby for me as well, obviously so, but I like to enjoy the photography, the process, the handling of the camera, the controls, and the whole thing I enjoy. like that's why I can go out with a film camera and still enjoy my time doing photography, uh, because that process I find very relaxing. And then, the hard part is, getting it developed and waiting for days. That's a little bit frustrating. But while I'm out doing the photography, I enjoy film photography as much as I do doing digital, because it's the process. And old film cameras are awesome. Main issue I would have with mobile phone camera is essentially very fast access to shutter speed and f-stop and dials and ISO button. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I like the tactile feel of everything, but that ultimately also gives you faster access to everything, right? Because it's right on your fingertips, and you can develop a muscle memory so you can quickly just dial in to get the shot that you want. And Plato says maybe most of us are too old for this evolution. Camera companies need to attract young people. I don't know. Yeah, they need new buyers, young or old, right? Uh, but this is not the way to go. This wouldn't appeal to me. It certainly didn't appeal to new customers when it came out. That's why it's discontinued, and it doesn't appeal to me now as a uh, way to go out and enjoy photography. But I'll take it out and see. Maybe once I start using it, I'll be like, well, this is not bad. I can do. It's just a very unique camera, so it's a different way to experience your hobby, right? With a device like this. So we'll see. I mean, the app itself, the OA Central app, doesn't give you anything new that you didn't already have built into your regular Olympus cameras. If it offered some unique features, but like I said, they that's what I'm saying. They need to develop. If they want to develop something, they just need to just make an Android camera from the ground up or an Apple camera from the ground up, and then third parties, and then can just start developing apps, you know, that are really neat and cool, right? And AI is for people that got to grips with technicalities of photography. Well, the limited AI things in cameras and cell phone cameras specifically, I would say that's a true statement. Yeah, with the limitations that we have now. But I think that in the future, AI will do a lot more than we could ever do with with only our photographic skill set. Um, but right now, the AI is trying to do things that make it feel more, that try to give you results that are more like a real camera. And maybe it's good enough for the masses, but as real photographers, or photographers that use legitimate cameras, we know the difference and can see the difference. And like I said, we take pride in our work, and if we're delivering an image, we want to know that we delivered or created the best image we can with the skill set and the equipment that we have, versus where artificial intelligence is now. You look at it, and we have a trained eye. Most of us, we can see, yeah, this is crap, right? Even though the average person might say, oh, this is cool, you and I are going to look at that image and say, this is crap. This looks like CGI, or this looks like, this has really bad edges here, or it's just, you know where I'm going. It doesn't work, AI right now, the way it is now. but I think it'll get there because I'm very impressed with the AI in software. The Topaz Sharpen AI, the Denoise AI, the particularly I like Photolab 4's Deep Prime AI. Those things are really amazing. And I didn't get a chance this week because I've been so busy to talk about that software. But I'm going to do a video on that software, talking about how it saved images that I normally would have discarded completely, or just really regretted, not being able to recover to some extent. Okay, and yeah, but I see where you're going, Tony. You made an analogy about carpenters buying a CNC machine. I don't know what any of that stuff is, but and System Matura says, Rob Trek specifically used my iPhone for taking shots underneath of mushroom fungi ground level. I would need to dig a hole for yes, that's true. Or you could just use a mirror, like a dentist mirror. I don't know. Have you seen the new MFT Mount Yangnu? Oh, hey, Darko. Yeah, we talked about it briefly, I guess, a few minutes ago. Oh, I went out partying last night, so my voice is all scratchy. Thomas Zazaska says a phone with a camera would not have to preclude the full functionality of the camera's dials and controls. Just add connectivity, touch control, and apps in addition. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Like maybe even the Yongnuo Android camera phone, with the interchangeable mount, maybe it's doomed from day one. It'll be doomed if Yongnuo is the only one to do it. They don't have enough clout yet, in my opinion, for that to take off, where third-party developers are going to start making apps that will just, blow your mind what you can do when you start adding software apps to a real camera. Because Samsung, like I said, did this years ago, and I think someone else mentioned something about a Panasonic did it. Where are those phones today? They're nowhere to be found. And those guys were heavy hitters. Panasonic and Samsung, they were heavy hitters, but they dropped it, right? So the fact that Yongnuo is coming out with one now, maybe it's doomed to fail. I mean, I don't want to say that, but my thinking is if no one else goes down that route and they're the only manufacturer, what incentive do third-party developers have to develop something for one very niche camera? They're not going to waste their time. So Yongnuo themselves will have to really impress with their own apps for that phone, to the point that, all the big heavy hitters on YouTube are like, this is amazing. Because think about how many cameras. Remember the Litro camera? I thought that thing was amazing. I really did. And then a year or two later, they're gone. I mean, to me, that was a really new innovation in camera technology, being able to, focus on everything at once and then pick whatever focus point you want later in the same image, right? It's pretty amazing. And I think with some AI, that thing could have gone really far. But, they're in the history books now. I still think about getting a Litro camera, but I don't think I could even look at the images with the software that they used to have for it anymore. There's probably some club or cult, foreign forum group out there that where you can get everything for it, the software and everything. But I always thought the Litro was pretty amazing. And Christine M says, any people just want to document their lives. Art is add-on, not core. That's why I fear the future lies with things like Apple glasses, with photography as we know it, byline. And art then is produced by AI. Well, it's kind of like when, the first computer beat, grandmaster at chess, right? And I don't know what the status is now, but I don't know. I'm just going to take a stab in the dark, but I don't think any human can beat a computer at chess anymore. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that, but at one point, a computer did beat a grandmaster at chess, right? And chess arguably is not an art form or anything like that. It's all, with a computer, it's all a mathematical model and predicting outcomes and moves and things. So a computer is really good at doing things like that. But when it comes to art, real art, I don't know if computer art will ever replace or beat somebody that's truly creative, right? A true artist. Because I've seen, we've all seen amazing things done by artists that you would have never thought of yourself, or I see extremely talented people, and I say to myself, there's just no way a computer, at least not in my lifetime, is going to be able to do the kind of things a true creative artist person will do. Like I saw an artist take a, they're a local artist to me, and they took a picture of the Wilkes Tunnel, and then they overlaid some graphic design on top of it. Now, the Wilkes Tunnel is just this tunnel here in Alexandria. It's kind of a historic site. And then when she overlaid graphic art on top of that, and then she sells these as paintings or prints on mugs, whatever you want, right? It's just digital art at this point. But I don't see a computer being able to do that, right? Artificial intelligence be able to take a local historic site like that and put that together with something creative, some digital art that's creative in the way that she did. And there's probably much better examples than I just gave that you guys can think of, where an artist took things because they have context and they know history and they know emotion and how things, feel when somebody looks at a particular kind of image or a picture. When I see a picture of the Wilkes Tunnel, the history comes back to me about what it was there for. And now there's rumors and stories about it being haunted. And then the graphic design that she put on top of that sort of complements that mood or emotion or feeling. And, I don't see how a computer would ever be able to do that. So, yes, somebody will just, we'll just get a little contact lens that we put in our eye and it'll document our lives, right? We can take a picture by just thinking about it. And then we ask the computer, can we ask the computer, can you overlay some art, on top of that? I don't know if a computer is going to be able to do that in a way that a human, a true artist or creative could do it. So that's my thoughts on that. The art is produced by AI. Now, what some people call art, we call crap, right? There's plenty of modules now in Photoshop that I can click on, transform an image to something drastically different, but still an image of what the subject is. And I said, wow, that's kind of neat. That's cool. A lot of people will probably love that and call that art. They'll want to frame it on their, hang it on their wall or whatever. But for me, um, I look at that and I say, oh, that's kind of neat, but I know it's crap. You know, there's no way I'd ever be able to sell that image. Has no value because it was computer generated by AI. It has no value. It's just an AI generated image. Uh, but to your point, is this kind of AI going to replace cameras, where cameras are just for, the cameras will become kind of a niche product if they're not already. Is AI going to do that? I don't know. Okay, that's that. Man, I talked a long time about that. Surely half the point of photography is to learn how to improve photos ourselves rather than using AI. Absolutely. And Roberto says Canon can now focus on what you're looking at. Yeah, I've seen that. That's I got mixed feelings about that. And then Tony says, I agree with you, Rob, but what does it achieve in the end is just false, fake gratuity. I can't remember what we were talking about now. We were talking about, let me see, it was some, yes, okay. It's like, we're talking about the same thing, AI. Yeah, false, fake gratuity. Yeah, you're right. AI is just fake, basically. And I don't think it'll ever have any value. I mean, if one day, going back to my a computer beating a grandmaster, the equivalent would be a computer generating some kind of art on its own and being put up in a museum or exhibit, as something special and being sold for millions of dollars, right? Like a Mona Lisa. Can that, if when that happens, when you have a computer with no input from a human, we just say, hey, Alex, how are you doing today? Can you paint me a picture that will make me feel happy? And if it goes out and does that and it goes to an exhibit and sells for millions of dollars, that would be the equivalent to me of the computer being a grandmaster. Now a computer has beaten, humans in art. But I just can't see that happening. I just don't see how a computer would ever get to that level, because that's a whole nother level to me. And Petra's here. Hello. Andreas is here. Good to see you. And Young Noah is China. Lots of customers there. Would market comes later? Maybe. I'm not that worldwide suave about world business. And Darko says Sony owns the rights to the tech. Maybe. The Sony QX. Oh yeah, that's been mentioned a couple times. Sony made a device like this before. I remember when it came out, and it didn't go anywhere either, right? Yeah, and Plato's asking if art is intuitive and evolves. Can a machine be programmed to be intuitive? And that's the question. If it's intuitive, then it's showing some sort of intelligence and self-awareness, right? Because without self-awareness, everything is a process. Step A, B, C, D. There is no intuition involved at all. So when a computer, let's say a robotic computer, picks up a camera, the way technology is now, it's going to be programmed to know where every button is, what every button does, every menu, where everything's buried, right? And it's going to approach things very technically to take a picture. But if we ask the computer, how are the controls on this camera? Do you find them intuitive? Are they easy to use? The answer is like every camera is easy to use because I know everything, right? uh, so how can a computer answer a question like that, right? Because this camera is no more difficult than, this one. To a computer, these things are equally easy to use, right? But for a human being that's self-aware, I can tell you this is a lot more intuitive to me than this is, right? Because this has real controls on it that I can develop muscle memory, and I can look at the light and I can quickly adjust the scene. um, like right now when I take a picture, I look through the viewfinder, I look at the scene, and I already know right away that I need to make the scene a little darker or a little brighter, so I'm already dialing an exposure comp sometimes before I even put the thing up to my eye. you know um, Computer would, a computer just doesn't have that sort of intuition, right? Yet maybe one day it might learn to be intuitive, where it'll be like, um, yeah, I'd rather use this camera than this camera. When a computer says that, that's when we're in trouble. Okay, when a computer says, yeah, I'd rather use this than this one, let's assume the image quality is exactly the same and the capabilities are the same. But if a computer would rather use this instead of this, or vice versa, that's when we're in trouble. Okay. Yeah, computers don't have feelings or passion, and yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. They're not self-aware in the sense that they, you know, can perceive something like intuition. Like, what's intuitive? Um, Art by computer versus art by human. That'll be another turning to, yeah, exactly. When a cybernetic organism says, I'll be back, yeah, we should worry. Absolutely. Um, I'm not sure what Roberto's talking about. AI best with things like eye detect, etc. Exactly. It's like cameras and lenses. It takes the person behind it to see the picture. Yep. And Michael White says AI will be there to do the drudge work. Think in deep P terms of selecting all the branches of a tree or aiding in compositing, but the overall vision will probably be human made. Yeah. And Michael continues, AI is just a tool, like a hammer or wrench. It's there to make our lives easier, freeing up things, higher level stuff like critical thinking. Yeah, the way AI is now, it's just a tool, but it's not. But we're talking about, is it going to ever be uh, something that's going to, we're going to say, man, this Olympus AI generated this image all on its own, and it's hanging in a museum now. You know what I mean? Like, there was no interaction at all. This thing was just on. Just imagine you turn on your computer one day and there's a picture on there of some artwork that it just felt like drawing. It got inspired while it was sitting overnight doing backups, and then it got inspired and comes up and it goes, hey Rob, look at this picture I drew last night. You know what I mean? I'd be like, wow. That's what I mean. Like, maybe it'll be there one day, but not yet. Oh, David has some history for us. It says in 2018, the smartphone maker, I can never pronounce that, Huawei, has announced the world's first photography competition judged by artificial intelligence. Oh, that's interesting. But I can tell you in 2018, I don't know. I'm not an AI guy. I'm sure there's some amazing things going on in AI that um, would just make my jaw drop. But I mean, like my little Alex thing. I'm not going to say the whole name, but my Alex thing amazes me that it can just pick up my voice even while the TV's on playing some other show. It can still hear my voice separate from the TV. Um, that's some kind of AI working that is learning my voice specifically and being able to interpret what I want to say. It's just amazing, these things. I mean, that's a very low level, simple way, but wow. Anyhow, and Gaming with Stan says, tried on one noise, no lens profile, not good. They need to fix that. Ooh, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of the, without the lens profile, like when I use Photolab 4 Elite, without the lens profile, the images are no better than the final output's really no better than you can do in any other software. I mean, there's tools and things you have to consider, right? But the ultimate image quality is really good when they have the lens profile built in. I don't know where On1's at in terms of having different lenses and stuff that they can adapt for or in their database. But yeah, it sucks when the lens, like, just imagine how many Fujifilm X-T30, X-T4, X-T3 people are not being able to take advantage of, the Photolab 4 Elite software because they don't have the camera or the lens database set up for it. I think they got most of the lenses, but they don't have the bodies to match. Yeah, Topaz uses AI in their products. Yeah, Topaz, does a great job without having to rely on uh, a database, right, of lens profiles and cameras, because you can use Topaz products on just about any kind of image, which is, that kind of flexibility is pretty amazing. I use Topaz Sharpen AI on some old slides that I have that I just can't believe how it brought back the sharpness to a level that I'm like, this is decent, right? And it's only going to improve over time. But okay, did I miss anyone's questions or any other comments? That's the kind of, I think we've kind of exhausted the whole AI conversation. Yeah, DxO said it's made for the Bayer matrix sensors. It's not worth reprogramming their software for X-Trans. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, because they do the other Fuji cameras, right? Like the X, what is it? Whatever. They're Bayer sensors from Fuji. They do work with those, but not with the X-Trans sensor specifically. Okay. The other weird thing about the stream today is I don't know how the time got set to 10:33. So I saw a comment early on about how that was a very specific time. I didn't do that on purpose. It just, I got on today to start at 10 o'clock. And then I go to the live stream and I'm like, 10:33. I don't remember setting up for 10:33. Maybe the AI knew that I was going to be late anyway, so it just gave me a little extra time. And then Gaming says, I do wish DxO and On1 would support built-in lens profiles also. Interesting. Come to think of it, I haven't really paid attention to that. I just applied the DxO profile, but and I haven't used On1 developing, their image editing software. I only tried their denoising one. But but I think you're right. If you don't apply a lens profile to it, it's not going to do the distortion corrections and whatever else there is. Versus, let's say the lens is not in their database, but the camera has a built-in lens profile for it. Why can't it just use that if it doesn't have its own? That makes sense. That's a good question. Or observation. Either way, it should be, you should have that option to say, yeah, I know you haven't caught up and you haven't built your own lens profile yet, DxO, but let me use the one that's already built in, right? That's a good point. And Paul C is here. Hi, Rob. I have the OMD EM10 Mark II with both kit zoom lenses. After seeing your videos on prime lenses and then seeing the price of Olympus primes. Yeah. Yeah, the primes prices have gone up a little bit too, but yeah, I use kit lenses. Like I did my photo job. No, I did my event photography, videography job with this lens, the 14-150 kit lens. I could have just as easily done it with the 14-42 and the 40-150, but this is an all-in-one. But it's not a pro lens or a prime lens. And when you're doing events, you need the versatility of being able to zoom in and out very quickly, especially this particular event. There's no way I could have done it with primes. There's just no way. You would need a 2-3 man crew. Well, let me rephrase that. A 2-3 person crew to really do an event. Where you would say, okay, you handle the videography, you do the prime shots. You're going to shoot primarily with the prime lenses and flash maybe, and I'll be sort of the catch-all zoom lens guy, just catching those moments instantly. But it'd be very hard to do an event type photography with a prime lens. Oh, see, next comment below, Rob. Didn't get the whole question. Okay, let me see. Let me back up. Paul C. Hi, Rob. I have the M10 lens. I have instead got a couple of older lenses cheap off eBay. The 28 and the 50 OM fit with adapters. Is there any issue with using lenses on an adapter to fit M40? No, not at all. I do it all the time. Yeah, I do it all the time. It's no big deal. I have the 24 and the 50. And, if you watch, I have a video. Look on my channel for Truck Yard or Truck Graveyard. And there's a whole series of videos where I use the 50 millimeter Olympus OM on my Pen F using a dumb adapter, right? It was like a $15 or $20 adapter. No problems at all whatsoever. And pros like to use pro lenses for f2.8 for low light. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there are very specific reasons you do need a prime lens or a pro zoom lens, because you need the faster lens so you can have faster shutter speeds and or lower ISOs so you get higher quality images. Yeah, no question. I rarely need to do that myself, because for my work, the event I did this week was outdoors, so I didn't need a fast lens anyway. I'm trying to think. I can't think of too many situations where I personally or professionally really need a pro lens. The only time I'll need a pro lens is when it's not available anywhere else. Like my 8mm fisheye is a pro lens. It's an f1.8 Pro. I just You just can't get it in any other form. They have a 9mm body cap lens, which wasn't wide enough, and it's way too slow at f8, and it's not that sharp, right? It's sharp, but it's not as sharp as the fisheye 8mm. There's a 9-18 lens though that I'm strongly considering, but now that the 8-25mm f4 is out, it's a tough call. Do I spend like twice as much and get the pro version, which has a longer zoom range? It's not so much the f4 and the pro optics that are attracting me to that lens. It's the focal range, right, from 8 to 25. It just happens to be a pro lens. Man, if they had an 8 to 25 and a non-pro version, I would definitely have that, and I would use that. Because my photography that I do, whether it's real estate or event photography, the few that I've done, they've always been outdoors. I haven't needed a fast lens because I'm either on a tripod or I'm outside. And if I'm on a tripod indoors, you can use whatever shutter speed you want, whatever aperture. It doesn't matter. You're on a tripod, right? Outdoors, you're stopping down to f8 anyway. Usually, at least I do, because it's so bright that if you stop down to f4, your shutter speed shoots up to 20,000. You can't you can't shoot at f4 because it's so bright out. So you have to stop down, and yeah, you can put an ND filter, and that's what I did. Even I didn't put it. This is not an ND filter. Even with a polarizer on here, because this pulls off a little more than a stop of light. Oh, look at that! How you can see through it in the green. Anyway, I have a polarizer on here on the front of this lens, and that's pulling off more than a stop of light. And even then, I was getting some really fast shutter speeds. So I shot a lot of stuff at f8 for that event. And Darko says, would you do old camera photo walk and edit those images in the latest editors? If the editors support the camera. I don't think they support like the E500 that I have. I mean, Photoshop and Lightroom support them. Workspace, Olympus Workspace supports it. But I have a Pentax and an old Nikon. I don't know if those are supported in the software, but I can do that. I'll do that. In Gaming with Stan says, render images in Lightroom and then DxO, and the images don't look yes, they do not look the same. They are different on many levels. And that reminds me, Gaming, because you were asking me about I think it was you, whoever was asking about being able to use the lens profiles internal. I compared the internal lens profile image against the DxO profile, right? Lens profile. What I did was I took the image from I exported the raw image to a JPEG in Lightroom, so all of the lens profiles from the camera will be reflected in the JPEG. And then I did the same thing. I took in DxO, I took the raw image in DxO, applied DxO's optics, and exported that as a JPEG. Then I took the two JPEGs, one from Lightroom, one from DxO, and I overlaid them on top of each other in Photoshop. And then I did And then the overlay, I selected difference, right? Because you have all these different overlay modes, like screen and darken and light and harsh light, but they have one called difference, where it'll highlight everywhere that the image is different, whether it's in color, if there's color differences, or if there's alignment issues, right? Well, if there's color differences and tonal differences, you can see the differences between the two. So if there's any alignment issues that are different between the DxO one and the internal lens profiles, you'll easily see it in Photoshop using that overlay. And needless to say that if you overlaid them on top of each other as is, there was a huge difference. But if you just align the layers, if you do auto align, it gets really close. But don't do auto align. Just resize the DxO image to match the image of the other one. Anyway, long story short, I spent a lot of time on this. I don't know why, like it really matters, but I spent a lot of time on it. And long story short is the DxO lens profile is so close to the lens internal profile that I don't know why DxO bothers. It's so close, right? To the point that they're doing a lot of work for just a very, very minute difference. I'm sure there's other things they're putting in consideration because they're matching the lens with the camera body and all of that. But we're talking about differences that are so subtle. Like I can't imagine anybody that would need that sort of precision, assuming one is better than the other, assuming DxO is better than the built-in lens profile. If that's the case, I can't think of anybody that would need that kind of precision, right? But anyway, I did compare, and there's a difference, a substantial difference until you resize the image, because I think the DxO image somehow is a little bit larger, and when I shrunk it in just a tiny bit, then it lined up almost perfectly. There were still differences in tones and colors, like you were talking about, where the outputs look different. There were differences, but not enough for me to say one is better than the other, or I don't know. I mean, I still like the Photolab 4 Elite output in terms of sharpness and some of the other controls and processing the files with Deep Prime. Oh my God. I just cannot believe the image quality I'm getting out of my files now that I was never able to touch when I was using Lightroom. And thanks, Rob. We'll have a look. Okay. And Archery says, if I have a 25 1.8 and a 12 to 40 Pro, what lens should I get next? You need something longer. I would probably go 60 millimeter macro. So I'm thinking in terms of enthusiast, right? If you're a professional, you know what lens you need, right? But as an enthusiast, I think the 60 macro would make a really nice logical step up. You get a little more reach, which is, always nice to have. It's not super expensive, right? It's $400 on sale, maybe 500 when it's not on sale. You can always find deals, 300 something when you buy them used in good condition. But it'll bring you into the world of macro photography, like the other two lenses could not do. It'll do this in spades. So definitely I think the 60 macro would be an awesome choice, and I would be surprised if anybody would say differently. Well, let me rephrase that. I would be surprised if anybody said that was not a good lens right now in the chat section. I think everybody will tell you, yeah, the 60 macro is awesome. The question is a little bit more subjective when you say, should that be your next lens? I think that would be a good first choice. You would not be upset with that because you'll expand your photography, with the macro side, and you'll get a little bit more reach. Money no object. I would say the 40 to 150 f2.8 Pro or the 100 to 400 lens that's like $1,500. You need something longer because you got the wide end covered at 12 millimeters. If you like wider type photography, then another good lens is like the 9 to 18. 9 to 18, which is around $500, maybe $600. It's about a $500 lens. The 918 will take you wider if you want to go wide, and it's a great street lens, I think, for street photography. But I would probably lean you towards the macro lens because, yeah, the 918 is wider, but if you want a wider shot, you can do that with the lens that you have now. Just take two pictures side by side, just shift over a little bit, then merge them back in post, and you got a wider shot. There's no amount of tricks that you can do with your current lenses to get the kind of images you will get with a 60 millimeter macro lens. You can do extension tubes, you can do lens reversal type stuff, but those solutions have compromises, right? If you use extension tubes, you lose light. A stop, two stops, there's some formula for that, but you lose light when you use extension tubes. If you use the lens reversal things for macro, those will get you pretty close, but then the workflow is very awkward. You have to use a slider of some kind to kind of move the lens back and forth. It's doable, but it's awkward. 60 macro, the workflow is point and shoot, click, 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 and the images are amazing. So that's where I would point you towards, is that, or really long 40 to 150 or 100 to 400. Those will be my choices in that order. And also, gaming with stance is also faster lens, faster focus, and matter of low light. I do weddings, by the way. Yes, absolutely. Because our cameras need light to focus. If you have a very fast lens, with a bigger aperture, it's getting more light, so it's going to be able to focus faster, right? Because not only is it getting more light, it's getting sharper light, more contrasty light, right? So it's getting better quality light through the lens of a pro lens than you'll ever get with a kit lens. So yeah, as a professional, you know these things, and you can make your lens choices based on your needs and very specifically look for these lenses. That's why I try, my answers are generally geared towards more of the enthusiast, beginner type photographer that's, just wants a recommendation or what my thoughts are, because I've been doing this a while, right? And as many of you have in the chat section, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, no question. But yeah, I try to gear my answers towards that, the enthusiast or the beginning photographer, and not so much the professional, because the professional knows, right, what they need and what they want, and they don't need me to tell them the same thing, right? That faster lenses focus faster. We know that, right? But it's important to make those statements, right? Identify those qualities of a pro lens so that, they might matter to a beginning photographer enthusiast. because they'll go out with their lens and they're like, this thing doesn't focus well. I have to try a couple times. Well, yeah, pro lens, you probably only have to focus once, whereas a kit lens, it's going to take a couple tries when the light starts to drop, right? And then they'll be like, well, why didn't you tell me that? I'm like, oh, sorry. So I appreciate you bringing that point up about faster lenses focus faster, among other things, right? The quality of light, the final quality of the image, all of that's going to be better. But yeah, wedding type photography. I did a wedding last month. Was it June? Yeah, I did one in June. I'm not a wedding guy at all. I've only done one, and I did that last month. And it was all outdoors, except a little bit inside. But those, but I had my 12 to 40 f2.8 with me, and it worked fine. And it was still pretty bright even indoors because there's all natural window light coming in. So I probably would not have had any issues focusing for that. But there's a lot of weddings that, man, it gets dark fast, right? And the lighting's very low, like in a church, and it's just candlelight, you know. Yeah, pro lenses can make a big difference in those situations. And John Yusei says, I do low light event using 3 primes on 3 cameras. What a pain. Now I use fast zoom for that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you that I cannot do, I'm not really a great event photographer. To do event photography, you really need 2 people, maybe 3, like 1 main photographer and 2 backups. For larger events, I'm talking like, more than 50 people, right? Which is a lot of events. If it's a small event, less than 50 people, I can do it, but I cannot go around with 2 cameras. I just can't do it. I tried to do the wedding. I brought 3 cameras with me. I had one set up. One was like my video cam, and I went around like this, and then I had this around my neck, and then I had a third camera on a tripod recording things, right? And my brain could not deal with thinking about 3 cameras at the same time. So I made so many mistakes. Like I said, it's the first wedding I ever done. And things came out fine. The client was happy, but I was sweating, man. Let me tell you. And things would have been so much easier in post-processing if I'd only used 1 camera for everything, right? Almost everything. I could not deal with 3 cameras hanging around my neck. And when I did an event on Friday with less than 50 people. And that's what I did. I just used this 1 camera, my EM1 Mark III with a 14 to 150. And I still made some mistakes with the settings and things that fortunately I can compensate in post-processing, but it makes the post-processing 10 times harder when I make mistakes in the field. I mean, ultimately the client was very happy and they're not going to be able to tell where I had problems and challenges, but I know because I had to sit there and I spent like 8 hours in post-processing something that I should have been able to do in a couple hours because I made some mistakes while I was in the field. But yeah, no way can I do an event with more than 1 camera and concentrating with 1 camera. Okay, I'm doing video now. Now I'm doing photos. Now I'm doing back to video. Now I can zoom in and out, etc. I couldn't. I would just crash if I had 3 cameras, no question. And Marco's here. Hey, Marco. I got your box, by the way. I got to, Dave, David, you got to remind me next time. I got this stuff in my car, but we're going to take that box I'm going to do a live in-person classroom this weekend. So I'm going to bring the box and start handing some of that stuff out. There's some awesome stuff in there. Aunt Max, oh my goodness. Aunt Max, how are you? I am shocked you're here. Nana Flower Power, oh my goodness. Love you too, Aunt Max. My goodness. Wow, that's shocking you're here. That's awesome though. Say hi to everybody there. The only reason DxO might make their own profiles is that DxO shows more of the image. It has something to do with their noise reduction. Yeah, it does show more of the image. And yeah, I'm sure there's some synergy between the optics module and the deep prime module and everything else they got, whatever. There's some synergy there that helps optimize one helps the other, right? Back, it's a two-way interaction there for their artificial intelligence. But like I said, ultimately the differences are so minute. I mean, I was just not the denoising. The denoising is awesome. There's a big difference there, but when you're talking about optical corrections for distortion and things, it's really just very minute. And Marco says the 60 macro is great. Also surprisingly good portrait lens. Yes. And Michael White says the 60 is awesome. And David says, I used the 60 yesterday. It was razor sharp. Okay, so lots of what's the word? Praise. Lots of praise for the 60 millimeter macro. And I ironically, it's a lens that I don't own myself because I'm not a big macro guy. I mean, I'll get close enough with with an extension tube, but I'm just not a macro guy personally. If you're not a macro person, I would go with a longer telephoto lens. And Marcia, I have both the 60 macro and the 4150 Pro. They're both excellent. Yes. Because, what Archer is asking really is the next lens. I don't know what his budget is and what his interests are. So 60 macro pretty much would be my recommendation without knowing anything. But if you're a sports action, like let's say you're not a macro guy, but you like taking pictures of birds. Yeah, don't get a 60 macro lens for that, okay? You want to get a 40 to 150 or 100 to 400. You want to get a lens like that. You don't want to get a 60 macro. Man, people like, I will have like no subscribers tomorrow. I'll be back to like one subscriber that will watch me. Even if I tell somebody, yeah, oh, you'd like to do birding, yeah, get the 60 macro. My God. Lynn K is here. Cool. Hi, Rob. This is Linda from Green Spring Photo Shoot. I'm on public Wi-Fi. Don't know how good the service is. Oh, I'm glad you're here. Either way. Rick Bear is here. Hi, folks. This will just be a quick flyby visit as I've got lots of jobs I have to finish today. How's everybody? Doing well, Rick. Thanks for stopping in. I know everybody's glad to see you when you come in. So if you can, always try to just stop in, say hi, and check in with us. Because, there's times when there's sometimes I'll be like, man, this person's here all the time. I haven't seen them in a long time. What happened? So it's always good when you check in. And Darko says, I bought a used Sigma MFT 60. Oh yeah, I know that lens. And I find it's light and great for portraits, but it's cheaply made, not a macro. I need the 60 millimeter Ollie macro. Yes. But you didn't spend much on that lens, right? If you bought a used, maybe $150. I mean, it's not much, and it's a cool lens. Small, lightweight, good reach, good, good fast 2.8. And Rick Bear says, it's because you can't be everywhere at a wedding or similar event that I tend to restrict expectations to a traditional set of wedding images plus my signature montage image. Oh yeah, that was back when we were talking about that stuff. 3 cameras around your neck. I have more than enough trouble with 2. I know, right? I mean, I've carried 3 cameras around my neck and have another one in my bag when I do some vlogging sometimes, but that's totally different. I don't like doing it then, but that's totally different scenario when you're getting paid to like get the money shot, right? And I can tell you, I would never manage with more than 2 cameras tops. One is going to be a primary, but I don't suspect I'll be doing a lot of event photography. Those were just kind of, flyby jobs. But who knows? Maybe they'll because this person that I did it for yesterday or on Friday, they were so happy with it, and they know a lot of people, So if those people start calling me, yeah. And Dave Nelson has a question, and for David Crooks. If I have a 200 millimeter f4.5 on my digital camera and a 100 millimeter f4.5, comparably the same lens, on my 35 millimeter camera, okay. Will the exposure be the same for both? Yes. It'll be the same. So meaning you would set your shutter speed and aperture exactly the same, no matter no matter what sensor is behind the lens. You would use the same exposure, right? So when I do my testing, when I compare full frame versus my micro four thirds, I match the exposures exactly as close as I can. I mean, there's very minor differences in terms of like t-stops of the lens, like the actual light that gets through the lens. There's also programming differences with Fujifilm where they intentionally are darker than other cameras at the same exposure settings. But in theory, in theory, not so much in practice, but in theory, it shouldn't matter. You should be able to use the same shutter speed and ISO at f4.5 as you do, regardless of the sensor behind. And Ed is here. Get the 60 macro and all that. Rick is probably talking about when I said use a 60 macro for birding. That's hilarious. Some people say macro when they mean close-ups on flowers. Then the 4150 is better. The 60 is for real macro, small insects and the head of butterfly. Yes, there is some, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a word on words, right? But yeah, some people call macro photography close-up photography, and that in itself is true, right? Macro photography is close-up photography, but the other way is not true necessarily. Close-up photography is not always macro photography, right? So there's kind of a range. So that's the way I would put it, is macro photography is close-up photography, but close-up photography is not necessarily macro photography. Macro photography, I don't know if there's actually like a specific definition for macro photography. It has to be 1-to-1 ratio, right? Meaning the size of the subject is exactly the same size as the sensor. If you're, which is 1:1. A lot of people say that is where macro photography starts, and then you get 2:1, 5:1, 6. You can magnify even more, right? But close-up photography is generally considered anything less than a 1:1 magnification. So a 40-150 Pro lens can give you like a 0.25, I think. I'm just pulling that number out of my butt, but it won't magnify a full 1:1. It'll do something like 0.25, but that's still pretty close, right? And if you crop in 4 times, you're getting 1:1. But anyhow, that's definitely a fine point on what the difference is between macro and close-up. And Roberto says, my boom mic picks up my lens trying to focus. It's annoying. Oh, I didn't have that problem. I use this microphone, so it has really good rejection, 90 degrees. This one is really good, because I was using it for my event photography. I was using it with this lens, and the lens, the boom mic went right over the top like this. So maybe you just need a longer boom mic with good rejection. So you want a super cardioid boom mic that's long. The long ones are usually super cardioids, right? This one's like $120. I mean, they're not cheap, but I think that might solve your problem. Why? Amin is asking, why pro birders say not possible to bird with MFT? I don't know who's saying that. I would, because there's so many pro birders that use MFT. So the statement is false, okay? You can use MFT for birding, and many professionals do. Many professionals have switched from other systems to MFT for their professional work. So it's not a true statement. It's not true. There has to be a balance, right? Because ultimately you will get better image quality with larger sensors, more expensive lenses, but I think part of that, it depends why they're saying that, right? If they're saying it because only up until recently, Olympus didn't have like a super expensive lens. Now they got this super expensive 150-400 with built-in teleconverter. They have a hardcore long telephoto lens. Before that, they had the 300 millimeter f4 that you could get teleconverters for. But I don't know. I'm not a birder really myself, so I'm not qualified to answer that question directly, but I can tell you anecdotally, there's a lot of photographers that do birding that use Micro Four Thirds. A lot of professionals. Which, if you go to the Olympus website, you'll see them there. So don't listen to, if somebody says that pro birders are not possible. It's just outright false statement. Jesse says, I got a 12-50 easy macro, great all-around lens. It's better quality than the 14-42 easy, if you don't mind it being, it is kind of a long lens, right? It's like the 40-150 kit lens. Oh, Stephen Long just got home. Well, I'm glad you can make it in. Jeff Painter's, hold on. Thanks, Rob. Good advice. Yes, you're welcome, Roberto. And Rick says macro equals scientific photography where the image is distortion free so it can be measured accurately as you'd need for scientific journal or at a crime scene. Traditionally, it can be measured 1-to-1. Okay, so that makes sense, right? So if macro does have a specific definition, there it is. It has to be distortion free. That's the other thing about the 60 macro is, let's say you take a close-up image, not necessarily 1-to-1. Let's say you take a close-up image of it using this lens, whatever it is. Let's say the 40-to-150 Pro. Okay, so you got the 40-to-150 Pro lens here. You got the 60 macro lens here. You put the Pro lens at 60 millimeters. You get as close as you can with the 40-to-150 Pro, right? And then you match that with the 60 macro, because the 60 macro can obviously get a lot closer to the subject, but a 40-to-150 will only get this close. So you put them both so that they're framed exactly the same, right? The 60 macro is going to give you the more accurate image, like Rick is talking about. Less distortion, right? So that when you measure something from the image, right, it's going to match exactly what the actual image is. Whereas the 40-to-150 Pro lens was not designed to do that. It's designed to give you the sharpest image possible and all that stuff, but there may be some distortion in there, and then there's software, whether it's in the lens and camera or in software on your computer, to make that correction, and it may not be perfect, right? Where things can be measured scientifically to be accurate. So that's the other thing with a macro lens, that it should meet that definition of being distortion free and accurate in terms of, the final image measures with the actual thing you're taking a picture of. So I can see where, if you're taking a picture of something that is 9 millimeters, I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there, and you print the image out on the piece of paper to scale, it should measure on that paper exactly 9 millimeters, okay, when you print it out. Whereas, and in every direction, if you have a circle with a 9 millimeter diameter, it's going to be perfectly 9 millimeters all the way around. Whereas with a 40-to-150, there may be a little bit of distortion, right? And you'll find that in the circle might be 9.1, 9.2 millimeters on this side, and back to 9 millimeters, maybe back to 8.9 millimeters. You know what I mean? Very subtle differences. To the naked eye, it looks fine. But for scientific measurement, you can't have those kind of discrepancies. And a macro lens is supposed to be that kind of accurate. Now, is the Olympus 60 macro that kind of accurate? I have no idea. I think by definition, by calling it a macro lens, it's supposed to be. But don't hold me to that, all right? You got to talk to Olympus about that. But to Rick's definition, that is the best way I can explain it. And Jeff Painter says the 300 Pro with the MC14, that's the 1.4 teleconverter, close-ups without being too close. Yes. Well said, Rob. There's so many biased people out there spreading disinformation. Yeah, I guess that was about pros say you can't use MFT. Yeah, that's just a false statement. And A lady told me today they only make 100 to 400 to 100 to 400s a day, and she is on the waiting list. Wow. Two a day, though. That's pretty good, actually. Considering, if you're talking about like that $7,000 or $8,000 lens, whew. And I've done some burning with the Ali 70 to 300 and got good results. Yeah, I mean, that's okay, right? Most of the people here disparage MFT, have no experience using MFT. They're just playing with the echo chamber of full frame snobbery. Why else would they carry a multi-gym on a photo shoot? Yeah. I mean, everyone has their own opinions. It's okay. If you don't like MFT, it's okay. But don't make false statements, right? I mean, any professional photographer, they will know the limitations of any piece of gear, right? You can walk out with a $3,000 or $4,000 kit from Olympus and get amazing birding photos. You'd have to spend, $10,000 or $15,000 to get the similar images, and maybe they're technically, this much better. Maybe they're technically a lot better. I don't know, right? But just that statement in of itself is false. All right. It has been discussed earlier regarding lens sharpness sweet spot. Is there a formula to it? No, archery. There's a rule of thumb on micro four thirds. It's like f5.6, maybe f8. It's just a rule of thumb. So I shoot at f5.6 a lot, and I'm very happy with the results I get. I've shot at f8 many times, enough, that I'm very happy at that aperture. But if you want to talk about a specific lens, you have to test it yourself to see what aperture gives you the best sharpness. And the question is, do you want sharpness just in the center, or do you want sharpness edge to edge, right? Because sometimes in aperture, the sharpness will be amazing in the center, right, at a certain aperture, then start to fall off at different apertures. Or I'm sorry, but then at that aperture, the corners and stuff aren't quite as sharp. Whereas at a different aperture, say f8, it is sharp corner to corner, right? The sharpness is equally distributed, sharp from corner to corner. But if you look at just the center, or any part of that, or just the center, that center part may not be quite as sharp when you were at f5.6. So let me reorganize that analogy. If you take a picture at f5.6 and you take a picture at f8, at f5.6, you may find the center is extremely sharp, right? And then the sharpness falls off a little bit as you get to the edges. So you take a picture at f8 and you find that it's equally sharp from the center all the way to the corner. But when you compare the center sharpness from f5.6 and you compare that against the center sharpness at f8, you may find that the f5.6 is a little bit sharper than it was at f8. So when you say, is there a sweet spot for a lens, it depends on what you want. Sometimes the sweet spot is all things. It's sharp in the center, it's sharp all the way corner to corner. At this one aperture, it is the sharpest, no matter what, whether you're looking at corners or you're looking at the center. Some lenses are like that. Many lenses, particularly zoom lenses, that is variable. You'll find that this focal length at 12 millimeters, it's tack sharp, wide open at f2.8. And as you stop down, it gets a little bit softer. And then when you zoom out to say 40 millimeters, you find that at 5.6, it's sharp corner to corner, right? But at f2.8, it's very soft. But when you were at 12 millimeters at f2.8, it was the sharpest. So yeah, there's no formula for the lens. Now DxO has a database that they test lenses like that. All things being equal, I think you can use DxO as a guide to what the sweet spot is for a lens that works for you, right? It's called dxomark.com. I haven't been there in a while, but they have a database where they've tested the sharpness of the lens. Another resource is called, I think, imagingresource.com. They do lens tests as well, and they print out charts that show, I think they're called, I don't know, there's some kind of line chart. I can't remember what it's called. But there are places that do lens testing to look for that sweet spot at different focal lengths or single focal length if it's a prime. But yeah, short answer is there's no formula. But you can test for yourself, right? Just put your camera on a tripod, take a picture at different apertures, and then compare them, pixel peep them, corner to corner, center. I mean, come up with a very specific methodology to your testing, right? So that you eliminate as many variables as you can. Like, is the lighting different, right? Because another thing that can happen is sometimes a lens is sharper, and I'm talking about like a zoom lens. Well, it doesn't even have to be a zoom lens, but a lens will be sharper when you focus closer than when you focus farther away. So when you focus at something close at f5.6, it's tack sharp. But when you focus far away, in the distance, you need to stop down to f8. It's sharper at f8 when you focus far away. So there's so many variables. There's no formula, and there's no way to determine other than say you need to get familiar with your lens and see if you're getting, with experience, you'll get a feel for how your lens performs at different apertures, at different distances, different focal lengths, different conditions, all of that stuff. Okay. And I've done some birding. Yep, I got that. Most people. And Lysippus, hello, Lysippus. I haven't seen you comment yet. I've come across the word flambient, flash plus ambient light, in window real estate videos. Is it a real word you use, or is it just a fancy description of something you do anyway? I don't know. I think Rich Baum I think Rich Baum may have come up with that word. Maybe it was Nathan Kuhl. I don't know what the origins of that word is. But if it's not a real word now, it will be, I'm sure. But it's the technique like you described, using flash and ambient and mixing those together. So is it a real word you use, or is it just a fancy description for something you do anyway? Yeah, so I would say right now it's just a fancy description. I don't know if it's a real word. I don't think you'll find it in a photography book before Rich Baum or Nathan Kuhl. And everything I learned about real estate photography, I learned from those two YouTube channels. And John Yutse says, the old rule of thumb for lens sweet spot was to stop down 2 stops, but that was just a point of departure. Depends on the lens. Yes. Rick Bear says, most of my macro type images are taken with the Olympus 40 to 150 Pro, as it allows me to get far enough away from insects that don't disturb their behavior and more light can get in. But there's a trade-off compromise because the edge distortion will distort the physical dimensions of the insect, especially if it's too close to the edge of the frame. Yes. So that goes back to what I was saying like forever ago in reference to Rick's other statement about what macros are without distortion. And David Crook says, we have 20 folks RSVP'd for the training class. Wow. Is my neck still doing? Yes, it's doing fine. Thanks. Like I said, just live streaming once or twice a week. I've been okay since I got it healed, but we'll see. We'll see over time. I just need to pay attention to my posture. Oh, heck, I think I'm all caught up on the chat, so I think I will wrap it up here. So everybody, thanks for coming in today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, spending it with me. It's good to see you, Aunt Max, in the stream. That was a big surprise. I wish I could have showed you. I really wanted to show some images and things I did this week, but maybe next week. Be sure to check out my Flickr and Instagram for images, and I have some. I'm gonna crank out a vlog that I recorded this weekend of some of the things. Just a fun vlog, nothing serious, but I'm gonna do at least that. I'm gonna put out a vlog this week of the party I went to and some of the sunflower stuff that I did yesterday as well. But you guys have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you again soon. I'll try and do a live editing stream as well this week too, so look out for that. Okay, so everyone take care.